Put a skull from a Cro-Magnon hunter 25,000 years old on a table next to your own. They look almost identical. Same shape, same proportions, same teeth, same face. But the Cro-Magnon skull is bigger. Inside it once sat a brain about 10% larger than yours. Roughly the volume of a tennis ball, gone from inside our heads in the time since. For 2 million years before that, the human brain did one thing. It got bigger. Generation after generation, species after species, our ancestors grew the most complex object known to exist in the universe inside their own skulls, doubling its size between the first humans and the last ice age. And then, somewhere in the last 10,000 years, that trend appears to have stopped and possibly reversed. The most expensive organ our species ever built, the thing that defines us, may be quietly going the other way. The first time scientists noticed this, almost 100 years ago, they assumed it was a measurement error. Brains don't shrink. Evolution doesn't undo 2 million years of work in a few thousand. But the pattern kept showing up, across continents, across populations. Skeletons from 20,000 years ago had bigger brain cavities than skeletons from 5,000 years ago, which had bigger ones than ours. In 2021, an anthropologist named Jeremy De Silva at Dartmouth College published the most detailed study of the trend ever attempted. He and his team measured nearly 1,000 fossil and museum skulls, from Homo habilis to modern humans. They concluded the shrinkage was real, surprisingly recent, and rapid. Happening, they said, within the last 3,000 to 5,000 years. A year later, two other anthropologists, Brian Vilmore and Mark Grabowski, reanalyzed the same dataset and came to the opposite conclusion. They found no measurable shrinkage in the last 30,000 years, maybe none in 300,000. De Silva published a response in 2023 defending the finding. The argument is still going. The truth is, the world's leading paleoanthropologists do not currently agree on whether your brain is smaller than your ancestors. But assume, for a moment, that De Silva is right, that something really did change. The next question becomes the strange one. Why? There are 3 serious theories, and each one says something unsettling about what we are. The first is that we have, over thousands of years, slowly domesticated ourselves. Every species humans have domesticated has lost a chunk of its brain. Dogs have brains 10 to 30% smaller than wolves. Domestic cattle have smaller brains than aurochs. Pigs smaller than wild boars. Cats smaller than their wild ancestors. It is one of the most consistent findings in animal biology. The moment a species starts living inside a structured social system, depending on cooperation, tolerating strangers, suppressing aggression, the brain begins to shed mass. The theory, advanced by researchers like Bruce Hood and Richard Wrangham, is that humans did this to themselves. Slowly, over hundreds of generations, the most aggressive, the least cooperative, the least tolerant individuals failed to pass on their genes as often as the agreeable ones. We bred ourselves toward cooperation, and our brains may have responded the way every other domesticated brain has responded. They got a little smaller. The second theory is more haunting. It says we didn't lose anything, we outsourced it. Once humans built complex societies, individual brains no longer had to hold everything. The group held it. Specialists carried specialized knowledge. The blacksmith didn't need to know what the farmer knew. The midwife didn't need to know what the navigator knew. Stories carried wisdom across generations. Writing eventually carried it across continents. The brain is the most energy-hungry organ in the body. It consumes about 20% of our calories, and evolution doesn't pay for what it doesn't need. So the parts that became redundant began to atrophy quietly across millennia. De Silva himself draws the comparison to ants. In eusocial insect colonies, as the group becomes more complex and more cooperative, the individual brain shrinks. The colony, in a sense, becomes the mind. The ant inside it does not need to be as smart anymore. There is reason to wonder if the same thing happened to us. The third theory is the gentlest and possibly the most accurate. Smaller does not mean worse. It might mean better. The anthropologist John Hawkes has argued that the modern brain, if it really has shrunk, may simply be more efficient. Like a smaller computer chip outperforming a larger old one, our brains may have rewired themselves to do the same work in less space, with less energy, with better connected circuits. Modern humans are not less capable than Cro-Magnons. By every measure we are more capable. So if the brain got smaller, something else inside it must have gotten better. This is where the story usually ends. Three theories, no resolution. Make up your own mind. But there is one more thing worth noticing, and it is the strangest part of all. We are unable, at this moment, to definitively answer a question about our own bodies. Anthropologists in Las Vegas argue with anthropologists in New Hampshire. Geneticists, statisticians, archaeologists, neuroscientists, all working in separate buildings in separate countries, none of them holding the whole picture. The question of whether the human brain is shrinking is not being solved by any individual brain. It is being slowly, partially, contentiously worked out by thousands of brains together over decades, which, if you think about it, is exactly the situation one of the three theories says caused the shrinking in the first place. Whatever happened to our brains in the last few thousand years, we did not become weaker for it. The Cro-Magnon could not have answered this question. We can, barely, slowly, never completely. Not because any one of us is smarter than the man who once carried that bigger skull, but because there are billions of us. And somewhere along the way, we stopped being a species of individual thinkers and became something else. We may have lost a tennis ball of brain. We seem to have gained the entire internet of minds in exchange.